How's it going, everyone? With the OTAs right around the corner, the Packers have a few positions that are not entirely clear of who's going to be starting, and it's kind of up for grabs for anyone to get a starting position there. So in this video, we're going to look at 5 positions, in my opinion, that we're going to keep a close eye on, that's kind of up in the air, and we're going to have a very tight competition on. So with a couple of them, they are from the same as last year, and they're now, once again, a recurring problem this year. So to start off, first one is safety. Last year was actually on my list that safety was going to be a tight battle, and it's the same for this year. So this is the most obvious one. No one knows who our starting 2 safeties are. It's pretty much been declared for the most part that Darnell Savage is going to get the start, especially in his 5th-year option, and he has the most experience at starting at safety. But when they asked Joe Barry who's going to start alongside him, that's where the competition comes from. And we have a lot of safeties on this roster. We have trimmed a couple, but we still have a lot of safeties on this roster. So we have Darnell Savage, Jonathan Owens, who we just signed, Anthony Johnson Jr., who's a rookie, Benny Sapp III, who's a rookie, Rudy Ford, who was great and not so great. Like, he was very inconsistent. Then you had Tarvarius Moore, who started for the 49ers. He didn't really start for the 49ers, but he came from the 49ers. Dallin Levitt, who's been with the team, he's more of a special teams player, and then Ignis Gaines, same kind of deal. And despite all these safeties being on the roster, some of them are going to be special teams player, and I feel like it really only comes down to Rudy Ford, potentially Tarvarius Moore, Jonathan Owens, and Anthony Johnson Jr., who a lot of people say that it was a steal, and was kind of shocked that he was drafted so late in the 7th round. So he could actually be in the running for getting a starting spot for us, and we'll see how the competition goes. But out of those 4 safeties, only 3 of them have had starting experience. The most one was Jonathan Owens. So Jonathan Owens, he did play all 17 games last season, but his overall PFF grades are not the greatest. So PFF had him overall graded at a 48.3, with his run defense being a 45.9, pass rush was 61.4 on when he blitzed, and coverage at a 49. So not the greatest of ratings for him. And then we have Rudy Ford, who we all know, he started with the Cowboys after benching Darnell Savage, and he had an amazing game. But for the year, he had a 74.6 overall rating, run defense rating of 58.9, a 64.4 pass rush rating, and a 77.8. And it seems like it's his job to lose in a way, but if you can remember back to last year, he was also slightly losing some snaps, and Darnell Savage was coming back in because he was a bit inconsistent. And it even shows up on his game-by-game basis to where he had an amazing game against Dallas, then didn't really show up with Tennessee, then showed up again with Philly, but didn't show up against Chicago, LA, or Miami. He kind of showed up for Miami. Then Minnesota, balled out, and then in the Detroit game, despite us actually kind of containing the Lions, since that was a high-powered offense at the time, he didn't have the greatest rating. He was very good at tackling, but he didn't have the greatest rating. And that's also when Darnell Savage was coming in and taking some snaps from him. So he had a bit of inconsistency to him, and Joe Barry even declared in his most recent press conference that he's looking for consistency, not just on the field, but off the field. Are you doing the things you're supposed to do day by day? And what he's looking for is consistency, which most of these safeties have not had. And then you have Tarvarius Moore, who didn't really start last year, but if you look at his previous years when he started, especially in 2020, that's his most recent year that he started, he had a 60.2 defensive overall grade with a 70.1 run defense grade, a 52 pass rush grade, and a 56.1 coverage grade. And throughout the years, he looks like his knack is run defense kind of safety, and he's kind of terrible on the coverage end. So it's definitely a position that's up for grabs and can be anyone to obtain it. It might not even be those 3 safeties that have starting experience, because you could have Anthony Johnson Jr. taking it because he could just be this amazing rookie that somehow fell to the 7th round. Next up, the second position I have is slot corner. So the outside corners are pretty much solidified. The Rasul Douglas kicking on inside, being a slot corner experiment is pretty much over. He's declared they're going to move Rasul Douglas back outside where he best plays, on the boundaries. So you have Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas pretty much solidifying the outsides. And it is now Keshawn Nixon's job to lose. They're going to give him every attempt to win this position as the nickelback, and Matt LaFleur even said that they're going to give him every opportunity to win this. And that kind of bodes an interesting question. will Keshawn Nixon actually win the starting nickelback? He did good for us at the nickel position last year, and hopefully he can continue to be consistent. But it also brings into question, what do we do with Eric Stokes? Will he potentially have a time or a chance to compete for the nickelback position? Because right now he's still injured. He's not even able to practice. He's been in the building, but he's still seems to be a bit of ways from being able to resume activities. Also, if you look at who's on the roster at cornerback, there's not much competition for him. You have Keandre Thomas, William Hooper, Corey Ballantyne, Carrington Valentine, and then Shamar Jean-Charles and Tyrell Ford. So it'll be up to Keshawn Nixon to pretty much lose this position. This is probably the most clear one, but it is still not set in stone, and he could lose his job depending on how he practices and how OTAs go. Now, the third position I have on my list is offensive lineman, and I had this on my list last year as well. So we know that David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins are going to solidify the left tackle and left guard, and potentially Josh Myers, although they did bring in some competition with DJ Scaife. They've officially listed DJ Scaife as a center, so they brought him in to compete with Josh Myers, and I feel like there should be competition there. Then you have the right guard position with Jon Runyan, who's probably going to win that job, but there's going to be some competition according to Adam Stenovich. And then the right tackle position is the most up in air. Yosh Nijman played good and then was also a bit inconsistent and actually got benched. Same thing with Royce Newman, played that position, got benched. Zach Tom showed well over there, but didn't entirely earn the job. So Zach Tom is probably going to be competing a lot with these positions between right tackle and right guard, according to Adam Stenovich, and possibly center, which I still have stated and feel like every video I talk about Zach Tom should be a center and should compete for the center job. At least he should be starting in some capacity for us. And at the end of the day, Matt LaFleur always loves to say that it's going to be who the best 5 offensive linemen are. They're going to be starting. So we have Bakhtiari once again, Jenkins. If Josh Myers is able to take that extra step, and Josh Myers has had a bit of an up and down. Yes, he was a high draft pick, and there were a lot of hopes, especially after an amazing collegiate career, but he's had a very inconsistent time at Green Bay at the center position. In the first 2 years, the job was kind of his, but in the third year, they've pretty much stated, hey, there's going to be some competition. So I think Zach Tom is potentially depending on how right tackle goes, with Royce Newman and Yosh Nijman, and maybe another offensive lineman that could show up, because we have a knack at finding late round or undrafted free agent offensive lineman who's going to earn that right tackle. And I think that'll trickle it down a little bit more once we figure out a right tackle, who's going to play center, and potentially right guard as well if they feel like they can improve upon Jon Runyan. Currently on offensive tackles on the roster, we have David Bakhtiari, Rasheed Walker, Caleb Jones, Kadeem Telfort, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Chuck Filiga, Josh Myers, Jake Hansen, DJ Scaife, Jon Runyan, Royce Newman, Tom Zach, Yosh Nijman, Luke Tenuta, and John DeLance. So we have a lot of offensive tackles that are going to be competing for pretty much 3 open spots, in my opinion. It's mostly right tackle and potentially right guard, but there are 3 offensive lineman positions that are actually open on this team. The 4th position I have on my list is backup quarterback. Jordan Love is obviously going to be our starter, and I don't think the Packers are going to keep 3 QBs this time around. They were kind of forced to, especially with Jordan Love, and he was being a first-round pick in the future. So with that no longer being a thing, I feel like the Packers are going to go back and keep in just 2 QBs. So Jordan Love is obviously the starter, and it's going to come down to Danny Etling and Sean Clifford. They've said a lot of things about Sean Clifford. He was a bit of a higher pick. Like, we kind of reached for him, considering a lot of draft experts thought he could become an undrafted free agent. And it's not like we were hurting for picks in the late rounds in the 5th, 6th, and 7th. We had a ton of them. So they kind of went out of their way, and it could have been because there was a run on QBs as well. They grabbed them in the 5th round, and they stated they really liked what they have in him. He's very knowledgeable. He has a lot of experience, and he's technically older than Jordan Love. So I feel like the backup quarterback is pretty much up in the air, and it could become Sean Clifford or Danny Etlings, or maybe another quarterback that they sign during the offseason to help compete for that job. Pretty much someone that fits with Jordan Love and the quarterback room. And now to the last position I have that's going to be a close eye to watch on is kicker. Mason Crosby is gone. Yes, they have stated that they're still in talks with Mason Crosby, but his wife's tweet kind of makes it sound like the door is shut. But as of right now, Mason Crosby is not on a team, including the Green Bay Packers. So as of right now, we have Parker White and Anders Carlson. Parker White still being on the Green Bay Packers, even though he's on the practice squad and got called up a couple times. But he didn't really play any action, so we don't have any NFL experience for Parker White. And Anders Carlson is a kicker that had some success in college and is a rookie for us. So pretty much all we have to look at is their collegiate career. Now, when we look at Parker White, he played 5 years at South Carolina and in total had a 98.7 extra point percentage completed and a 72.7 field goal percentage, all the while with Anders Carlson having a 98.3 extra point percentage and a 71.8 field goal percentage. So they're very close in percentages, with Anders Carlson's career percentage made is 90.9 and Parker White's is 94.1, which was his final year. He converted 16 of 17 field goals attempted. So it's going to be a very close, what I feel like close kicking competition we have over here. And that's if they don't decide to hit up Mason Crosby for, I would assume, a final year or another year if they somehow went that route. I doubt they'll bring him in for competition and release him. That'll be pretty bad amongst the Green Bay fan base, I feel like. And this doesn't even include if the Packers decide to sign a third kicker or if there's another kicker out there, or in very rare fashion trade for a kicker, which I highly doubt. But it's going to be very interesting to watch OTAs and the mini camps to see who comes out on top at all these positions, especially at offensive tackle and safety, once again making the list this year from last year. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Pack Go.